Hi, I'm Karsten Spencer. Welcome to Flash Forum, enlightening entertainment for the new age. And you're here with us today for our second half hour with the Reverend Leslie Nips. So she's a family constellation practitioner and a wonderful person in her own right and a good friend. So I want to go ahead and introduce Leslie. And why don't you just, for those people who weren't here last week, and watching the show, why don't you just share a little bit about the family constellation work and what it's all about?
Yeah. So Family Constellations has been around about 20 or 30 years, founded by an interesting guy named Bert Hellinger, a German Roman Catholic priest and family systems therapist. And he spent 20 years in Zululand in South Africa doing mission work. And he noticed something that I'm sure you've already noticed about indigenous communities, which is that for them the dead are not dead, and they are still alive to us. And so it's important not only to have proper relationships with your mom and your dad and your neighbor and your greengrocer and your priest, but also to have proper relationships with the people who have died and gone ahead of us. Now, in those communities, there are ways to kind of maintain the health of those relationships and notice when they go out of whack in some way and show up in the symptoms of people in their lives. But here in the West, we don't even believe in any of that stuff. And what Bert did was come up with this thing called Family Constellations, which was a way to connect with our ancestors cross-generationally, kind of notice what's going on in our family soul, and make readjustments to the system so that we, the client, can have some relief of symptoms, concrete symptoms like insomnia or overeating or unemployment or relationship problems, all kinds of things.
Wow,
Yeah,
beautiful. And
yeah.
I love that you said the family soul.
Yeah, that's Bert's
Yeah,
phrase for
because
it.
we don't,
Yeah,
and I didn't realize that he
yeah.
was a Catholic priest, you said?
For many, many years, no longer,
Wow.
but for most of his
But
life.
it's interesting because you know,
Yeah,
you're the Reverend Leslie Nips, and I've
yeah,
just been hired as the spiritual leader of Unity of
yeah.
Ukiah. So it's interesting that I don't know. I just
It's
find
that
that
shamanic
interesting.
thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
well, and
yeah,
that's what's coming up so much in
yeah,
in the dream work. What I've been
yeah,
being led to is some of the shamanic dreaming. So, which is the
yeah,
connection with the ancestors, with all that deep energy that's in our subconscious that we in this society we think of as unreal, but
right,
in many other societies, in the work that you do, in the work that I do,
right.
we honor that as real.
Yeah.
It's not physical, but it's real.
And it's affecting people very deeply and very painfully.
Yeah.
And so they go to doctors and therapists to try and fix these problems. But if they don't see the larger context in which the symptoms are arising,
Right.
they get no relief.
Yeah.
And so I work with clients who are really stuck. They've been trying a million different things. And they have a sense, sometimes they even quite literally say, I have a sense this doesn't belong to me. Sometimes they're not, they don't say it quite that literally. And we begin to notice that actually it doesn't belong to them. It belonged to their great grandfather who died in World War One, or it belonged to their grandparents who died in the gas chambers in the Holocaust. It may literally, what's going on in your life, not belong to you.
Wow. Now, can you share a little bit of with our viewers about how you would work with someone if they came to you with, say, a problem? Let's take an everyday, maybe mundane problem.
Yeah.
Uh, if there's something that someone's come to you recently, a story or just an example.
Well, it's interesting. I do these gatherings because it's a group process usually,
Mm-hmm.
although I can do it one-on-one or by phone. Just last Sunday night in Berkeley. And both of the clients have money problems. They cannot earn
And I'm
the
sure
kind of
none of
yeah,
our
yeah.
viewers can identify with
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. In our
Yeah,
modern economy.
yeah,
So we had two different constellations, very different constellations. Why? Because two really different family systems with different kinds of suffering going on in them. And it was very moving. In many ways, by the way, money stuff has to do with connection with father energy. So reconnection with fathers who have been lost was a big part of both of these constellations. And fathers,
wow,
lineage of
yeah,
lost fathers. Literally the next 2 days later, I got an email from one of the clients saying, Well, I got two unexpected sources of income I could not have expected, so I think this stuff is working. It's modest to begin with, and it's always a nonlinear response because we're working with unconscious processes.
So I just want to stop you
Yeah,
there just for people because I think a nonlinear response, people may not exactly know what that
sure.
means. So just explain
Well,
that a
linear
little bit.
response is I have a headache, I take an aspirin, the headache goes away,
Right.
right? I have a broken leg, I put it in a splint that keeps it stable so it can heal. Most of the kind of healing you and I do are we don't promise those kinds of results because it doesn't work that way,
Because
and it would be dishonest.
right. So in other words, what we're seeing is it's not stuck in time and space,
Yeah,
which I think is one of the more powerful
yeah,
aspects of this work. It helps the ego mind move out of this what I call the era thinking of collective consciousness, which really limits who we are. We think we're just in this body, we're separate from everyone, but what we learn from this healing work
right,
is that we're like we talked about last week. We
right,
were talking about that we're in relationship with everything around us.
yeah,
Not just the physical stuff, but our ancestors, which that energy is all around us and it's still there and it's not linear. It's opening and what so much of the New Age they're talking about the power of now and
yeah,
the ever present moment, like the present moment
yeah.
awareness that I'm doing, which is where we open up and we see that there's a much bigger picture.
Is that connected to what you say about the sixth sense?
Uh, well, it's interesting. The Sixth Sense. This came up recently. I was listening to a book on tape, and it's called. Is it The Element? I think it's called The Element. I hope I'm saying this correctly. And he was talking about the five senses, and he said there's another sense, and he said, can you guess what it is? And he really gives you a chance to spend some time because he doesn't tell you what it is, but there's a number of
Yeah,
paragraphs that continue, and he says it's not. It's not ESP or that intuition that we think of as the sixth
mm-hmm.
sense. He said it's a real sense, and it has to do with your relationship to this here and now moment.
Mm.
It's the sense of balance,
Oh,
our
okay.
relationship to Mother Earth and the world around us. We don't think of that as a sense, but it is a sense that really connects us with every relationship that we have. And for me, it was so powerful because that's my yoga. I mean, this is the work that I
Right.
did. We talked last week about so much of my spiritual journey has been about getting present in the
Yeah.
body because I went right out of my body when I was a kid. And that sense of balance in my yoga is all about the balance and the harmony we have with the energy around us. So it's a very important sense. And I realize that I've been working with my clients through the energetic body work technique that I do, and my yoga, and really all the work is about feeling that sense of balance and connecting that with your work and the family constellations. It's recognizing that once we really tune in to what's going on here, not just what our other five senses can tune in, but our sense of balance with the world and with the energy around us and with our emotional center. What's our
Mm-hmm.
sense of balance with our mental center?
Well, it's interesting. What we call this in family constellations is proper place. Yeah?
Yeah.
And when we start a constellation, everyone can feel that no one in the family soul is in their proper place. And people are irritable, or they're scared, or they're trying to run away, or they're trying to take over, or whatever it may be. And as the constellation, the family soul, becomes more and more ordered towards love, people feel, oh, this is a good place. This is the place for me. This is a wonderful place for me. And it sounds like the same thing as that sixth sense.
Yeah.
Is noticing the proper place for
Yeah.
us.
Or it can just be simple as saying, "Oh, I'm feeling grounded."
Right.
It is it's the thing of being present
Yeah.
in your body. And when you're
Right.
really present in your body, it's not just your body. You're aware of all the energetic stuff that's going around you. I mean,
Yeah.
we all have the experience of walking into a room and feeling the energy.
Right.
So we know that there's much
Right.
more going on than our five senses can tell us. And that sixth sense, that idea of that balance and connection with Mother Earth, is that connection. When I did past life regression many years ago in the 80s, one of the most powerful lifetimes that came up for me, I was a medicine woman in a Native American tribe. And the reason I was the medicine woman and was, had such a high position in the tribe is because I had this ability to tune in to Mother Earth, and through feeling the energy, I would know if we walked, 2 miles or 2 days in that direction, we will find the buffalo, we will find game. So I was really, and when you do the work at the Light Institute, which is where I went,
Right.
they have you go into the body and really experience it. It's not just an idea. So I really felt it, and I went because I had injured my foot and it wasn't healing. And that lifetime, along with a couple of other lifetimes, really gave me the understanding and the connection with my body, so that my foot was able to, because I'd been to doctors, they weren't able to help. It was able to heal because I began listening to my body and what it was telling me. And I
Nice.
began to slow down and feel that sense of balance with myself, my body, and the world.
It's interesting. We were also talking before we started recording about how we both work with people with difficult emotions. And it sounds like it's connected a little bit to that for you. Tell me more about how you work with that.
Well, it's interesting because we connected with the foot. The foot it was clear that there was a lot of blocked emotions that I
Yeah.
wasn't willing to feel. There was an anger around the
Right.
foot
Yeah,
about
that makes sense.
which way I was heading and where I was going.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Foot goes this
right.
way.
Well, and ultimately, in slowing down and beginning to listen
Yeah.
to the body, that was where I recovered the memories of the sexual abuse as a
Right.
child. So,
Yeah.
as you step back and see it, you see that everything comes to you. At least for me,
Yeah.
everything came to me for a purpose. You think, oh, how can the fact that you're a dancer and you're right in the middle of your career as a performer and a dancer, and your foot stops working, which interferes with moving forward. How can that be good? Well, the good news is it got me in touch with my authentic self. I was able to remember things that I had been blocking forever, and it was a real healing. And it led me to my emotions, all
Yeah.
these emotions that had
Yeah.
been blocked. So the way I work with emotions is to really come at it with the idea that there are no good and bad emotions. And we're taught very young that certain emotions are good and certain emotions are bad. So what the message we get when we hear that is that if I'm angry, there's something wrong with me and I'm bad. If I'm sad, then there's something wrong with me or I'm bad. And so we start to feel those emotions, and it brings us back to that place where we think there's something wrong and there's something bad, and we want to fix. And anger is one of the most powerful ones because that's one of the first places that we're usually stifled as a child. And so we get the idea that if we want to be a good person, we want to be nice, we can't be angry. And so we grow up as an adult thinking I'm just going to be this nice person. So we're not really being authentic. In the presence process, they call it, we're living through life in pretense rather than presence, because we're pretending we're something else. And how many of us stuff certain emotions, say it's not appropriate. So what happens, and I realized this in working with my own anger, is that when the anger came up, I was not only just angry because of the situation, I was angry at the person or the situation that made me angry, because I didn't want to admit the fact that I was a person that got angry. I was supposed to be a spiritual person who always felt good. So it wasn't just pure anger. It was anger and then resentment and anger at the person who made me angry, because it wasn't acceptable for me to be angry. When I began allowing the feeling and just expressed it, I realized that I could get quite angry and express it to someone, and it wouldn't create a trigger, it wouldn't create a drama, they wouldn't come back at me because there wasn't any blame connected with my anger. I was owning my own feeling.
Nice.
I was angry, and I was able to express it without saying, and I'm mad at you because you made me angry. Even though I wouldn't say that out loud, there was an implied thing there. There was a vindictiveness in the anger, which was basically a vindictiveness that I couldn't face putting on myself because I was judging myself for my anger.
Yeah.
So it's a way of working with the emotions where you really have to detach what's the actual emotion and what's the story behind the emotion that is triggering you and keeping you stuck in a drama situation.
Yeah, another thing I find with some of my clients who have like repeated feelings like anxiety, that they don't even know why they have it, but they've been doing it for months or years or maybe even their whole life, or rage and they don't know how to deal with it, or sadness they can't manage. What we often end up finding out is that out of love and devotion to ancestors who had a sad, angry, or fearful experience, they're repeating the feelings in their own lives, and they're literally not belonging to the person. I have a client right now who's dealing with tremendous anxiety, and what's becoming clear is that it's a big I love you to her father, and to her father's brother, who died on D-Day in the invasion
Wow.
in Normandy. And we all know what a bloodbath that was, and what a way to go that was. And so as a way to include all of that horror, and say I love you to them, she's actually having kind of a war inside of herself. And through the family constellations, we can find a way for her to honor them in a better way, which is to bow to them and say, I honor the dignity of your fate. I am small, you are big. Please bless me. Thank you for my life. And the feelings begin to dissipate because they actually don't belong to her. The terrible thing is, of course, she gets anxious in life or angry or whatever it is. She has to come up for a story for why she's anxious or angry, right? She has to find somebody that it makes sense that she's angry at, or something that she's afraid of, when actually it doesn't have anything to do with those things. And we can release it at the place that it's really showing up.
Yeah, well, and I can see how the family constellation work is something that can work beautifully in harmony with the presence process, because the presence process is all about going out back to the causal point.
Right.
And we can do that to a certain extent. And he says very often you will go back, as you say, what does this feeling remind me? Because first thing he says is detach from what's going on the outside, because what's happening on the outside is not really the source of this emotion. It's triggering you, and it's ultimately your world showing up to say, hey, you're out of balance. There's an unresolved emotion here, you know, that's needing to come into balance. So if you can say, what does it remind me of? For me, when a strong emotional charge will come up, I will follow it back very often to a childhood thing, but then he says, let go of that story and just move into the feeling and allow it to move through, because very often it's pre-verbal, and what we're learning here is very often it's and so when you can come to the understanding of the causal point, recognize it, feel it from that point, and let it go, then you really set yourself free.
Right. And with this, in both both ways of approaching it, there's this deep honoring for the full breadth of human experience. Both the ones that are in balance and all of those that are so out of balance.
And one of the things that you talked about that I want to hear a little bit more of what that means for you and your work is I am small and you are big. So explain that a little bit to me.
So again, in family constellations work, life flows down, right? I can never give birth to my parents, right? It's just a kind of a reality. It's one limitation of reality. And we're not talking cross-incarnational and, different lifetimes with these people. We're not going there right now. It's just as an ancestral system, I cannot give birth to those who went before. They gave life to me. So strength flows down to me, and I can actually do nothing to help or assist them. If my grandparents died in the gas chambers in the Holocaust, this is a fact. It is a heartbreaking fact. It's part of the dignity of their fate. It is part of their suffering. And by making my own life miserable, I make that happen no less than it happened. Yeah? And that's the sense in which we mean small and big. The bigger ones are here to give life to the ones who follow. And as an ongoing resource, those ancestors can continue to give us strength and energy in life. So in a sense, you, behind me, I've got my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and this wonderful strength is flowing down. Little exercise I like to offer to clients. We're on chairs with backs right here. I imagine myself literally leaning against the legs of all of those supportive ancestors. So many of us are running around with zero sense of support. It's what makes connection makes life so hard when we have to self-generate all of our efforts for work, for money, for love, for everything, when in fact we've got the only reason why we're breathing is because our ancestors are sending us energy in life. And all we want to do is open up the spigot so that it can run a little bit more freely and lovingly.
Open the door. It's interesting. I love that, what you explained there. And I've done that guided visualization with you, feeling that pyramid of souls, of ancestors supporting us. And that's the other thing that I have found through the grief work that I do when I help clients reconnect with their loved ones who have passed, is that we cannot change what they went through, but in releasing ourselves from it and allowing them the dignity of having it, it sets them free where they are. I mean, I really get a sense that they are there supporting us, partly because they need us to let go and be free and move forward,
Right,
move
right.
into that more. And also it reminds me of the 12 step idea, people who are in 12 steps,
Right.
where you turn your life over, because we have a tendency to take on much more responsibility
Right.
than is really ours. Really it's
Yeah.
up to us basically to say, I'm here now, I'm supported, what's my next step? But we go into this hypervigilance where we think we're responsible for everything and everything
Yeah.
around us, and it's really helpful to be able to let that go.
There's a nice family constellation saying, I must be small in my family in order to be big in my life. Uh,
Yeah.
So a feeling of proper place amongst the ancestors. After all, unless I have children, I'm the smallest one of all of those thousands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that releases me to be an author of my life,
Yeah.
and to have the full dignity of being an
Yeah.
adult in the world.
Yeah, and I think another way that manifests of having all this sense of responsibility and not having detached or healed from some of that ancestral stuff is it triggers the codependency that is
Oh, yeah.
so rampant
Yeah.
on the planet, where we're
Yeah.
constantly, we think the only way we can take care of ourselves is getting in everybody else's head and figuring out how not to make them mad, not to do this.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it stifles so much of us, because we're
Yeah.
never able to just be in our own small self and say, okay, what's mine to do right
Well, and
here
it makes
and right now.
interdependence impossible.
Yeah.
That mutual support, that mutual help, that mutual connection. It makes that
Which
kind
is
of
the
partnership.
opposite of codependency.
Yeah, yeah. It makes it impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all we actually want. We want these peer,
Yeah.
partnered, connected relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, you shared a nice tool, and if you have another one, and we do have time to do it, but I'd also like to
Please,
share.
share a tool.
I want to share.
So I
uh,
can leave here with a tool.
Okay, well,
Good.
I'm going to share a couple of tools, and first one is so simple, and it's the presence process breathing technique, which they call it consciously connected breathing, and it just is a way to practice being in the present moment. You notice the breath, breathing through the nostrils if they're clear. If not, you can breathe through the mouth, and you just concentrate on allowing the exhale and the inhale to stay connected within an even flow. And for me, it brings me very quickly into a sense of balance and a connection with the world. The other thing that's so powerful about breathing work, which is I've been doing it for many years
Yeah.
with yoga, is that it is that relationship. The inhale allows for the exhale. The exhale makes room for the inhale. So there's these two parts of us, that is the giving and receiving part, always in harmony. So when you focus on the breath, just maybe for 10 or 15 minutes twice a day, morning and evening is what they recommend in the presence process, it allows you to just be in the natural balance and experience of give and take. And the other thing that is has been really helpful for me, a lifesaver, and I've been doing the presence process. I'm going to start it again with the group at the end of this month.
Oh, good.
A new group. It's a 10-week process. Is to, when you get triggered, thank the messenger, detach, and as soon as you can, find a space to sit and do the consciously connected breathing as you invite in the feeling without judgment. And be aware that as you do this, probably the feeling is going to keep triggering an ego response. You're going to say, oh, I should do this, or this person that, and you're going to want to go into blame and the drama. Just notice that, but be willing not to do anything and just to breathe into it, trusting that process as you feel it is the process of healing it. So very often just being willing to feel the feeling when it's there and not react to it allows it to heal. And I find that when those deeper feelings begin to come through and I allow them, there's the awareness. I'll have an awareness that will help with the healing.
Thank you.
Simple.
That's lovely. Yeah. And as a sort of a simple tip, it matches that really nicely. If I'm having a feeling that I think may not be mine, oftentimes what I actually do is I imagine right in front of me all of my ancestors, and I will bow to them. And if I'm feeling really strongly, I'm going to go a full prostration on the ground to really feel how small I am, and to say, I honor the dignity of your fate. Your fate is not mine. I ask you to bless me as I live. And often I find that the feeling just dissipates because I'm not trying to lovingly connect with them by having their experience. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
It's a really
beautiful.
nice release.
And as you said, getting down on your knees and actually prostrating yourself.
Yeah, makes it somatic, puts
Well,
it in your body. Yeah.
and what I want to say to people, because I know when I began doing this spiritual stuff, I had a Guru Mai, who's part of the Siddha Yoga tradition.
Sure.
And people would go and they would bow in front of her chair and actually lie on the ground. And I thought, oh my God, it didn't have any, it really pushed my buttons. There's no dignity there. And then someone explained to me that it's not about not having dignity. It's about honoring the place where the feet of the Guru, and the Guru, she was very clear that I am part of, I am the God in you. I represent that. I'm not something special. So it was really honoring that connection with the earth and saying we are here on the earth and we're honoring that divine energy that is always flowing down into the earth. So it's not about,
Submission
no,
or anything
exactly.
like that.
And to get clear about that.
Right.
And as soon as I realized that and allowed myself, after I did my chanting in the morning, to lay flat on the ground, I had this experience of being, it was a yoga thing, being totally connected to Mother Earth, feeling her energy flowing in and feeling the divine energy moving down through me. So in releasing into that, it gave me the energetic connection. And now when I teach my yoga class, and one of my favorite positions is when we lie on our stomachs and do the face down relaxation position, and I encourage my students to feel Mother Earth coming in and healing them. So so much of it is about energy, and we don't understand that the ego gets involved with all these other stories.
I remember a long time ago reading Suzuki Roshi, the student bows to the teacher bows to the student, and sometimes we bow to the house cat.
Yeah.
Which I always found quite charming.
Yeah. Because we can get so on our high horse, which isn't always bad either,
To
because
the
we have
Buddha
different
and
parts.
everything. Yeah.
But to be able to just surrender and let go and bow, it's a
Yeah.
really very powerful release.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you have something coming up soon that has to do
do.
with helping people deal with just basic everyday
Money and work.
challenges.
Money and work. So my clients are people who are dealing with extremely practical problems. It could be depression or anxiety or relationship issues. I am focusing in on issues of money and work because a lot of my clients seem to be dealing with either chronically not having enough money, chronically being underemployed, or having a vocation they can't figure out how to make money at is a really common thing. Like they love this work, but they can't get anyone to pay them for it. So it's going to be a whole teleseries, which is a wonderful medium for people. It's very convenient. It tends to be quite affordable. And I've got an upcoming free telecall on Wednesday night, June 12th. And we'll give you information at the end of the recording of this video about how to contact me about that if you would like to join the call and find out more and explore the possibility of being on the teleseries.
Go ahead and give that information right now.
Sure. So
to the end.
my website is www.leslienips.com. That's LESLIENIPPS.com. And you can find me there as well as all information about upcoming events and to sign up for that telecall as well. I also give free half-hour phone consultations, ancestral healing consultations, so please take me up on that. I'd be delighted to offer that to everyone who's watching.
Yes, absolutely do. And if you do call Leslie for one of those sessions or sign up for a teleseries, just let her know that you found out about it through the TV show, so we'll just get a sense of who's out there watching. And I really want to affirm that the teleseries process is so powerful. The energy that you can be a very intimate group because you're all in your own space, and yet you're connecting with an intention to heal, and the work can be very powerful. And this gives me a chance to plug my upcoming teleseries.
Good.
Both the presence process is coming up, and that is live and or through the telephone. So we have a group that gets together in person, and we have people on the phone. So it's really powerful because we can feel all the different energy moving through this presence process, which is about healing the emotional center and moving fully into present moment awareness. And that keys in very well with the Dream Team, which we really didn't get a chance to talk to, but we talked about last week, which is a 13-week teleseminar series where we're going to be exploring our dream world, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, really moving into getting in touch with our ancestors, where you can actually have real powerful experiences of meeting their energies in the dream state, gaining guidance and wisdom on how to deal with everyday life situations. So all that information is on my website as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon. We went a little bit over. Hold up.
You may have to edit something.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. 1 minute. Well, and basically, if they don't have someone scheduled right after me or their show's a little bit shorter, they usually will let them go.
Yeah.